Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. My name is Maddie Schloss, and I am one of the assistant directors in the Office of Undergraduate Admission at Northwestern. Thank you so much for spending part of your day to learn a bit more about Northwestern and more specifically, the Northwestern student experience from an international perspective. And thank you to all of you for joining us again. We actually have registrations from 58 countries today, so that's fantastic to hear. To get things started, I am going to ask our international student panelists to introduce themselves. And then after that, I'll give a really brief introduction of Northwestern itself, and then we'll get into many different questions. So feel free to add any questions you have for our student panelists to the chat, and we'll be able to begin going through those. So to get things started, Karina, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Karina. I'm from London. That's where I am right now. I'm a rising third year in the School of Communication. My primary major is theater, and then I'm also double majoring in history. And extracurricularly, I'm very involved in the theater scene. I mostly do like acting and directing, but I also dabble a bit in marketing and dramaturgy and things like that. I will popcorn this to Martin.
Hey, I'm Martin. I'm from Poland originally, but I lived in Germany most of my life. I'm currently in Evanston, so I'm still at Northwestern right now doing a summer quarter. I'm a global health and a Middle Eastern studies major, and one of my favorite extracurriculars is working for a professor translating poems for him from German. Oh, sorry, and I'll give this to Chloe.
Hi, I'm Chloe. I was born in Hong Kong, but I grew up in Shanghai, and I'm currently in Taiwan. I am a rising second year, and I study learning and organizational change in the School of Education of Social Policy, or just CESP for anyone that doesn't want to say that. One thing that I really enjoyed doing at Northwestern was IM soccer. Our team didn't go that far, so we didn't play a lot, but it was a lot of fun. I'll popcorn it to Darren.
Yep. So I'm Darren. I'm originally from Mauritius, such a small island next to Madagascar. And I'm currently still in Evanston taking part in the Chicago Field Studies program. And as far as on-campus activities is concerned, I'm part of the International Student Association, and that's been a big part of my Amman life here at Northwestern. And I'll popcorn to Laith.
Hi, my name is Laith. I'm from Amman, Jordan. I'm a rising junior in McCormick, and I'm involved in the International Student Association as the General Engagement Chair. So what we do is basically we create like educational topics that are related to us as international students, current issues in the world, and that's basically it. Thank you.
Maddie, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those introductions. So I'm going to lead into just some basic facts about Northwestern's location, its academic programs, as well as touch on the admission and financial aid process specifically for international students. And while I do that, please feel free to start adding any questions that you have into the chat, and we'll begin kind of sorting through those and get prepared to answer those. And so I do love to start out with Northwestern's location because I think it's a really special thing and not something that all US campuses have. So we are right along Lake Michigan, our campus. And we're this really pedestrian-friendly campus. So it takes about 20 minutes to walk from one end to the other end. And what's fantastic for students is that on one side, you are completely surrounded by Lake Michigan. And on the other side, you have the city of downtown Evanston, where we're located. So our students find not only kind of having that natural beauty of the lake and lots of opportunities for fun along the lake, but they also realize that they have a fantastic community right alongside them in the town of Evanston. So it is worth noting that Northwestern is located in Illinois, and Northwestern is in Evanston, and that is the first suburb north of the Chicago city limits. So our students find that they are often able to engage with the city of Evanston, and they have really everything that they could need as college students right in the town of Evanston. So whether that's really great coffee shops, fantastic restaurants, bookstores, things like that, you really do have all you need at your fingertips. And beyond that, you have the city of Chicago, which is the third largest city in the US, right in your backyard. So our students love the fact that they can engage with these 3 different communities. And I'm sure our students will have lots of kind of anecdotes about how they've engaged with the city of Chicago, but it is a really fantastic place to be. So I moved here about a year and a half ago, and I have so much to explore in the city of Chicago. One of my favorite kind of tidbits of information is that there are 77 different neighborhoods to explore in Chicago. And so while it is the 3rd largest city in the US, I think it's really navigable and really manageable. It is the city of neighborhoods, and you're going to find lots of kind of unique spots to hang out in really all of those neighborhoods. So whether you're interested in the comedy scene, there are tons of really well-known kind of comedy spaces in the city of Chicago. There is a fantastic art scene, and as students, you actually get into the Art Institute of Chicago for free. There are tons of fantastic restaurants, lots of really wonderful sporting opportunities, really anything that you're into, I think you're going to find it in the city of Chicago. So those are kind of important pieces about where we are, but taking it back to campus, I do want to touch on the academic approach that we have. And Northwestern is a Tier 1 research university, but at its heart, it really is a liberal arts education that you're going to get at Northwestern. And we really pride ourselves on the fact that we're really flexible and interdisciplinary in our approach to that undergraduate education. So Northwestern is broken down into 6 undergraduate schools. You've heard from students, I think we have 4 of the 6 schools represented today. But to give a little bit more of a breakdown, the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences is going to be our largest school on campus, and it is broken down into 26 different departments. About 50% of our students do have Weinberg as their home school. And all students on campus, no matter their home school, will take a class or 2 or more in the College of Arts and Sciences. Next, we have our McCormick School of Engineering, which is special for a lot of reasons, but it really does stand out for its whole brain approach to engineering. So not only are you going to be utilizing the left side of your brain, so using those analytical skills, but that creative side of your brain, the right side of your brain, is also going to be really important in solving day-to-day engineering problems. Next, we have our School of Communication, and this offers a really wide array of programs. So Karina is part of our School of Communication, and she's studying theater, but we also have dance within the School of Communication and a lot of other majors. So we have things all the way to human communication sciences, so kind of the science side of everything. We also have radio, television, and film, which is a really popular program as well. Next, we have our School of Journalism, and this program really stands out because at a lot of universities, you might have a major dedicated to journalism, but we have an entire school dedicated to the innovative study of this subject matter. Then we have our Beanan School of Music, and this does offer a conservatory level kind of musical training with an academic component. So you will be taking courses outside of Beanan as well. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have the School of Education and Social Policy, which Chloe is a part of. This is kind of the smallest but mightiest program, we like to say, and it offers 5 concentrations that really take on challenges in the fields of education and social policy. So it is worth noting that students we'll have that home school, but we really encourage students to take courses in 4, 5, or even all 6 of those schools. And a lot of times students will challenge themselves to do that because they realize they're going to be able to participate in a whole lot of academic exploration that way. So I mentioned that we are really flexible and interdisciplinary in our approach, and it is really important to note kind of the reasons behind that. So at many schools, you will have kind of a rigid set of general education requirements. You might have a set of classes that you need to take in order to kind of diversify the classes that you're taking and ultimately graduate. At Northwestern, we want you to have a little bit more agency in choosing those classes, and so we have theme-based requirements. So you'll typically have about 6 themes depending on the home school you have, but you do have hundreds of courses to choose from in order to satisfy those requirements. And should you have more questions about that, I'm sure our students would be willing to explain how they've navigated that structure. But another piece of this is going to be our quarter system, so our university calendar. And typically students, schools are broken down into semesters, so 2 terms per year, but at Northwestern, we are broken down into 4 academic quarters, 3 of which are going to be required, that summer quarter being optional. And students realize that during the summertime, they can often participate in experiential learning opportunities, whether that's an internship or a research project. And oftentimes they won't choose to take classes, but during the other 3 quarters, they find that they really like the kind of quick pace of the quarter system. And that's because ultimately they'll be able to take more classes on quarters over semesters. So typically our students on the quarter system will take about 48 courses over their 4 years as opposed to 40. And that will allow our students to ultimately combine interests and potentially tack on another major, minor, or certificate program. So more on that to come. Actually, I can go into it right now. So when it comes to those courses, just for a little bit of information, a major typically takes between 16 and 19 classes, I believe. A minor takes between 7 and 9 courses to complete, and a certificate program takes between 4 and 6. So with that 8 additional courses on that quarter system, students find that it's really easy to tack on another minor or certificate, for example. And that allows students to oftentimes combine things that maybe don't seem to go together at the surface. So more to come on that, but I do really want to touch on kind of the admission and financial aid process as well. So I'm going to leave a lot of kind of the extracurricular opportunities and research opportunities to our students to discuss, since they're really in the midst of it. But when it comes to the admission process, I should start with our deadlines. So for students that will be applying this year, definitely make sure to pay attention to university deadlines. But Northwestern offers an early decision option as well as a regular decision option. And for early decision, our deadline will be November 1st. And for our regular decision option, our deadline this next year will be January 3rd of 2021. Whichever way you decide to apply, we will require the same materials from you, but it is worth noting that should you apply early decision, this is going to be a binding agreement for you. So if you're sitting here today and Northwestern you find is your #1 choice, you're super excited to apply, this might be the best option for you, but it is going to be binding. So should you be admitted, you will be required to withdraw all other university applications and commit to attending Northwestern the next year. Should you want a little bit more time to decide on things, that's perfectly fine. And the regular decision option is certainly going to be more popular for our students. But again, when we are looking at applications, we're going to be looking at the same things. We are on the common application as well as the coalition application. And I typically recommend that students work with their school counselor or administrator to find out that college list before deciding which of those applications to submit. Sometimes it'll make more sense just to complete the common app. Sometimes it'll make more sense just to complete the coalition app. In rare cases, you may have to complete both, but you'll want to submit one or the other to Northwestern. And that does include an essay. And beyond this, Northwestern has a highly recommended Why Northwestern statement, something along those lines. So we really want to know why you're interested in Northwestern and what you're interested in participating in when you get there. Beyond this, we are test optional for the 2020-2021 cycle, given everything going on with the pandemic. So should you want a little bit more information about that test optional policy, we do have an FAQ section on our website. But if you're unable to test, we realize the reality of that. Should you have been able to test and you think that those test scores add to your application, you can feel free to submit those. That's kind of how the process works there. Beyond this, we will, of course, need your high school transcript materials. And coming from 58 different countries today, we realize that those transcripts may look a little bit different one from the other. And we are really well versed in understanding those transcript materials. So there's nothing you need to worry about there. You don't need to kind of convert things to a GPA. I get that question a lot. We're going to be looking at those in the context of the curriculum that you're a part of. Should those documents not be in English, you will want to make sure that you submit English translations, but that's really all you have to do there. After that, we do look in your application itself at the extracurricular activities that you're a part of. And again, coming from maybe 58 different countries, we realize that those extracurricular activities will look different. So that's okay. Again, we realize kind of the context of that situation, but whatever you're involved in outside of school and sleep and spending time with your family, be sure to include those things, because that's really going to clue us in as admission officers into how you may engage on our campus. Finally, I think I actually have touched on everything. Nope, I have one more. So we do have just one more piece for international students, and that is going to be submitting proof of English language proficiency. So we will require those a test score in a lot of cases from students, but what's really fantastic is that we have expanded the exams that we are accepting. So if English is your first or primary language, or if your secondary schooling has been in English, you won't be required to submit an English proficiency score, but in some cases you will, and we will accept the Duolingo English test, as well as the IELTS and the TOEFL, alongside their at-home editions for both the IELTS and the TOEFL exam. To make sure you know kind of the details of all of this has been updated on our website, so feel free to check that out there. In terms of financial aid, I am not a financial aid expert, but I do want to touch on some of those things. And what's really important to note is that at Northwestern, we are committed to meeting 100% of students' demonstrated need for all students that we admit. And for international students, we will be looking ultimately at your request for aid in our need-aware process. Should you be interested in financial aid, need-based aid, you'll want to make sure that you include that on your application so that we know and so that we can evaluate your application to make sure that should we want to admit you, we can kind of contribute to those funds and help you get to Northwestern. So at this time, I am going to pass things off and we're going to start with some of our questions. So let's see. Does anyone want to go into the research opportunities at Northwestern? Is anybody participating in research right now? Karina, do you want to start?
Yeah, so at Northwestern, there are various ways that you can do research. I'll speak about one of them, and I think Darren and Martin have experience with some other things as well. So I'm currently doing a summer undergraduate research project, and what's really cool about Northwestern's research program is that if you are really passionate about researching a topic that you don't feel necessarily fits into like a research lab that is already existing at Northwestern, or a professor that you can find, and you have this topic individually that you're like, I really, really want to take a look at this, you can apply for a research grant either during the academic year or during the summer months. And Northwestern will basically fund your research and give you the capability to undergo all of that research by yourself. So for example, this summer I'm researching medical misdiagnosis in women's health and the social emotional legacy that it has on women's lives. And I'm also have worked with the university to make it adjustable to this new reality that we're living in. And I'm able to be doing that research from my bedroom. So that's fun. What else, Darren or Martin? I don't know.
I would perhaps also add to that there's a lot of research opportunities within the school during the school year. So personally, for example, I work together with one of the teachers and professors in my department. And as I already said, I translate poems for him so he can like further his own research. But at the same time, I kind of learn from him how to include all that research in the way that he's working. And it's a really great opportunity to see how academia works, like hands-on, and like be in the process of creating new pieces, new journal entries, and new pieces of work. So that's really cool.
And just like Martin, I also participated in research during the school year. So I was working with Professor in Kellogg, working on his one of his projects. And I was very interested in like looking at the economic development of low-income countries. So I found this professor and I was asking him if he has any projects that I could work with him on. So I was looking at Kenya in particular. We were trying to map out the entire forest area of Kenya and looking how it changed during like various times, let's say political unrest or economic policies and how they change that. And I think it was really interesting. So there are lots of opportunities when it comes to that. And it's certainly just, it's right there. Just need to go reach it and grab it. And it's very easy to get those opportunities.
Thank you all for these fantastic answers and really cool research opportunities. So we have received a question kind of about career opportunities as well as Northwestern career advancement support for non-US citizens. Has anyone worked with the NCA? Would anybody be willing to share those experiences?
Yeah, I can go for this. Yeah, I've had a lot of work with both NCA and McCormick's own career office. So the nice thing about Northwestern is that they have a main career office, which is NCA, Northwestern Career Advancement. And then they also have offices for some of the schools. So McCormick has their own school because our career needs are very different. And NCA specifically caters a lot to international students. They constantly have a lot of, they constantly update us about about international career tips, how to approach these things, and also inform us about how about if we can apply for specific jobs with or without sponsorship, which is very, very helpful. So it's definitely, so Northwestern's career atmosphere is very informative to us internationals, which is great. Yeah, Darren, if you want to take that.
Yeah, so maybe I'll touch on the on-campus clubs that you have on campus as well regarding pre-professional activities. So I'm an econ major, and I was very interested in finance and business. And I'm part of the Alpha Kappa Psi Business Fraternity, the Northwestern Capital Management Club, which is like, we have $10,000 from the endowment fund, but we get to invest in the stock market. And I'm also part of the investment banking club. So all of these clubs basically prepare you for recruitment regarding for this particular issue will be like for finance. And with the Alpha Kappa Psi Business Fraternity, it was more about finding mentors, finding people that you could talk with, learn about various careers, learn about what's the difference between finance, consulting, tech, and maybe anything else that you've been looking at. And with Northwestern Capital Management, I learned how to look at investment in a very professional way. How do you come up with investment ideas? And in the investment banking club, it was more sort of recruiting, like focusing on recruitment itself and helping you land a job. As an international student, it's something that's not as simple. As you may know, there's lots of requirement needed. Lots of firms need to sponsor you if you want a full-time job here. But there are lots of opportunities, and whether that's the NCA, which is the school's like own arm regarding professional activities, or on-campus clubs, you have lots of resources to help you get a job that sponsors. And if ever you want to stay in the US, there's definitely the resources to help you do that here. And it's not that hard.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. So taking things back to the academic side of things, we've gotten some questions about distributional requirements. So I know all of you are part of different undergraduate schools for the most part, but would you mind potentially talking about those distros in different schools? Karina, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Sure, yeah. So my primary school, even though I'm a double major, my primary school is a school of communication. So I have to fulfill the distribution requirements that the School of Comm lays out for us, and for specifically the theater major, even though I have a second major, which is history in Weinberg. So yeah, and what Maddie was saying earlier about how the school sort of phrases these requirements thematically, I think has really helped me use my distribution requirements to learn things that I'm actually interested in, even though they're not specifically dedicated to either of my majors. So for example, I had to take a couple of classes that were sort of under the umbrella of science, math, and technology, but that was really the only umbrella that I had to satisfy. So anything within that I could choose, and I could take anything that sort of sparked my interest. So I decided to take astronomy, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I really loved the professor, and I thought it was such an interesting class. So I decided to continue fulfilling that sort of thematic requirement, I would just keep taking classes within the astronomy department. And it was this really fun way for me to like get involved and learn about this area that I, as a theater and history major, would never really explore. But because the requirements were sort of more flexible in a way that you can fulfill them whichever way you like, as long as it satisfies that one box, it's really fun that way. And I know a lot of people who actually really enjoy fulfilling their distribution requirements, because it kind of like forces them to take classes outside their major that they probably would have been curious to take anyway. And that's kind of just what I love in general about this sort of liberal arts system that we have going on. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in.
I can go, I can chime into this. So McCormick is a bit different. It's slightly more structured than the other schools in terms of like the course requirements, but we also get a lot of freedom to choose. Specifically as an industrial engineering major, I can choose a lot of different science courses and things within those like specific distribution requirements. In addition to that, if you've looked up Northwestern's engineering program, I'm pretty sure you've heard the phrase whole brain engineering. What that means is that they want us really to use our entire brain. So one of the requirements for your engineering major would be 7 theme courses, which are 7 courses in the humanities and social sciences. I'm personally doing economics and Spanish, which are completely out of the realm of engineering, but they're very interesting. And right now, due to that requirement, I'm currently pursuing an econ minor too. So yeah.
So in CESP, we follow the same distribution requirements as Weinberg. And so there are like 6 main themes that Karina was talking about earlier, and they kind of fall all across the spectrum of what you'd learn. Something that I did want to add was my high school, we did like AP system. So just like a quick plug, if you're a senior and towards your like 2nd semester senior year, if you don't really want to like work hard on those AP tests, it is good motivation because they do cover a lot of your distribution requirements. Of course, if your school doesn't do AP, they also take IB credit, I believe. That's something you can Google, but they do kind of matter if you want to take over credits. Yeah, that's all I had to add.
Anything from Weinberg that anyone wants to add in terms of distros?
I mean, it's the same as Chloe already said. There's 6 major groups that we have to cover, and we have to take 2 classes each. So in total, we'll have 12 classes that are belonging to the distribution requirement. Yeah, I think everything's been said already. So.
And something that I want to add is that sometimes you naturally fail those classes. You don't even realize that you already failed your distros. You're just taking classes that interest you. And then you're like, oh, okay, like, I'm done with those distros. So it's not something that you should be worried about. I know when I came to the US, I was like, oh, do I really want to spend a lot of my credits on classes that I don't want to take? But you will see that those classes are really interesting, and you're just going to start taking them without even you realizing, but you satisfied those distribution requirements.
Fantastic. So we've gotten a couple more questions regarding kind of the specifics of academics. So I know, Laith, I know that you delved a little bit into this, but would you mind explaining the McCormick kind of first year engineering program and how it's structured for students?
Yeah, for sure. So actually, McCormick's engineering program, I think, is slightly different from other schools. They have something called engineering analysis, which is an engineering class that all engineers take, including like computer science majors in McCormick. And it's like a 4-class sequence where you go through the basics of engineering. I'm personally an industrial engineering major, so I don't really have a lot of hands-on things that I learn about usually, but this class gives me the chance to learn a lot about like things like linear algebra, statics, dynamics, and differential equations, and a lot of programming too. So it's a very helpful way to like unify the McCormick community in terms of academics to make us all relate to one another as engineers. In addition to that, all McCormick first years also take something called DTC, Design Thinking Communication, which is an awesome course where you learn basically how to design a product. So you're assigned a client, and with that client, you work to create basically a prototype of a product that you want to give them. Usually it's people with disabilities from the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab in downtown Chicago, and we go ahead and help them out with creating a product that would help them in their everyday life. I personally created with my group, we created a basket that helps someone with something called a hemipelvectomy, which is their entire leg is amputated, something to help them out, like do chores around the house and help them around with kids. So in that class, you basically learn how to communicate with writing and also how to design, which are both really important aspects of engineering. Thank
you for that. So another kind of academic specific question, this one for Karina. Can you talk a little bit about the diversity of the theater major and more specifically the musical theater certificate, if you have any information about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one misconception that people have about the theater major before they apply is that if you are going to be a theater major, that the theater is like pretty much primarily focused on acting. And what I will say is kind of like hidden information about our program is that there are so many incredible faculty and courses that have to do with design. And actually, when you are a theater major, you kind of have to sort of pick a concentration within that once you get there, so that you like take your acting sequence, or if you don't want to take the acting sequence, you can do a design sequence instead. And the musical theater certificate program is sort of like an add-on to the theater major. So it wouldn't, you'd still like be taking an acting sequence, or you could even still take a design sequence as well as do the musical theater certificate program. And the way that program works is when you get to Northwestern in the fall quarter, probably around November, you have auditions. And so you go in, there's an audition where you have to sing, I believe it's 2 songs. And then there's a dance audition as well. And then basically they come out with the list of people who've been admitted to the certificate. And once you get into the certificate, you get assigned a vocal coach that stays with you throughout the rest of your time at Northwestern. And you'll basically start working with them in your second year. And then you also basically go through a bunch of musical theater training courses with your cohort of people that you were admitted alongside. So we have classes called MT Techniques, where people go in and practice singing different songs from different genres of musical theater. I personally am not in the MT CERT program, but I have a lot of friends who are, and they really, really love it. And then I also have a lot of friends who are really, really passionate about musical theater, but didn't end up getting into the certificate program, and they are still able to find ways to get into those MT CERT classes and take vocal lessons, because there are other, like a lot of very, very talented vocal coaches at Northwestern who give lessons as a part of a separate program in BNN, and you can participate in those whenever you want. Yeah, and so and also dance classes are like open to everyone. So even I've taken a dance class, which was really fun. And yeah, there's a lot of ways to get involved with that. There's also a lot of extracurricular opportunities to be involved in musical theater, which I think is one of the biggest ways that we as theater majors learn to practice our craft in general. I think it's a really incredible opportunity that we have compared to other disciplines, that like we actually get to practice every single day what we'd be doing in our careers when we graduate. So yeah, that's my take on the program that we have.
Thank you so much. So moving into kind of the extracurricular side of things, we have a question about whether or not there are sports clubs or teams that aren't necessarily professional. So I'm not sure if any of you actually are involved in any intramural sports, but if anyone wants to take the lead on that. And then if you also want to maybe discuss kind of our Big Ten athletic piece as well, and kind of what that means to you and the school spirit that goes along with it, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I played intramural soccer. So how the intramural scene works is that like the first quarter, there's like a set amount of sports, and then second quarter, and then if we had a third quarter, there'd be a set of sports there too. And intramural, it's probably the lowest commitment organized sport that you can join at Northwestern. And you kind of just get a group of friends or strangers, and then you sign up as a team, and then you guys just get games that you guys play every single week, and then you can like advance from there. So it's pretty low commitment, but it's still a lot of fun. And then above that, you have club sports. So those are, depending on the sport, kind of competitive, and also you would need to try out for them. And then I didn't do a club sport, so I don't really know the ins and outs of that, but I do know that they compete in tournaments on the weekends sometimes, and they would travel to like a different state, which is super exciting. And then on top of that, you have like the professional college athletes. So I assume that's something that needs to happen before you go to Northwestern. I'm not sure either. I'm not a professional athlete either. And then if you're not interested really in like an organized sport, we also have gyms on campus that if you want to just go work out, lift some weights, that's something you can definitely do. You have free access to them, and they're distributed on campus. So there's 2 of them. They're kind of easy access no matter where you live on campus or even off campus. I think Darren had something he wanted to mention.
Yeah, so I'm also in IM soccer with the International Student Association. Yeah, we never played Chloe, but also I'm part of Spikeball, which is like, a fun game that people usually play here on the beach. You might not be familiar with them. I don't think it's popular outside of the US, but it's very easy to be involved in anything. Spikeball started with just a bunch of my friends deciding to formalize the way we were playing outside on the beaches here. And it's very easy to find a club that's not as competitive, that's low commitment. Let's say you're looking for something that's not too much commitment, but it's very easy to find any kind of sport clubs that you're interested in.
Yeah. In addition to that, I'd like to touch upon like the fact that we're a Big Ten school, basically, which means that we're one of the best schools in terms of a Division I NCAA sports. So, which adds an extreme amount of school pride to us students. If you've ever looked on what happens in freshman orientation, the freshman class goes to a football game, and they run across the field, and you can have your parents like watch you on TV from home running across the Northwestern field, which is awesome. We also once last year or the year before, we went to Indianapolis, where the people organized buses all the way from Northwestern down to Indianapolis when we played, I think, the Rose Bowl, which was an extremely fun activity for a lot of students that just like really put in school pride. And there are a lot of activities that center around sports on campus. So yeah.
So bouncing back a little bit to academics for now, can you explain, I'm not sure if any of you actually started out as undecided, but can you explain kind of the support services available for students that might not know what they'd like to major in campus? Yeah, Martin.
I didn't come in as undecided, but I just had like a vague idea of what I wanted to do. So as many other of my classmates, I just started out taking like classes that sounded interesting, or like distribution requirements. And through that I like forged my path into my current majors. But along the way, I had a lot of support from both my professors and the advisory side of Northwestern. So let's say with almost each of my professors, after the course had concluded, I would like have a really long conversation with them about the topics that we were talking about, or the course of study that you could take within their departments, which was super, super helpful in deciding what I wanted to do and what I wanted to continue. As well with my personal advisor. So every student, at least in Weinberg, I don't know exactly how it works in other school, gets an advisor that you can talk to about the classes that you're taking, the courses that you're planning along the way that you are at Northwestern, as well as like career opportunities that are connected to the different classes that you're taking. So there's a lot of support for students who don't know yet what they want to do. And there's students who are here for 2 years, and for the whole 2 years, they don't know what they're taking. They don't know what they want to do. But that's absolutely no problem, because there's no one forces you to sign up for a major until you're very sure. And you only have to decide by the end of your second year. So we have plenty of time to take like a variety of classes. You can like finish all your distribution requirements. And then after that, you can decide what exactly you're interested in, and which direction you kind of want to go into.
Great, thank you, Martin. So kind of going along those lines, how have you found the accessibility of professors? Do you meet with your professors during office hours? I've heard countless stories of students just having these really fantastic working relationships with their professors. So if anybody would like to share their personal experiences, that would be great. Karina?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, especially within the theater department, which is where I have interacted with more of my professors, I just like the amount of energy and passion and understanding and like desire to help you that your faculty have is just unlike anything I would have ever imagined. Literally a month ago, I called my acting professor and just spoke to him for an hour and asked him for advice about how to get into the industry and like whether I should do this or do that. And he was more than willing to help and chat with me. And they're also more than willing to really go above and beyond to help you in your journeys to discover what you're exactly interested in, what career might interest you. You know, if you want to assistant direct a professional show, our faculty are connected in a way that they can do that for you. And I'm so sure that that's the case for so many other majors out there as well, because our faculty are not just people who, they're people who have like a lot of varying interests and a lot of varying incredible experiences that they can draw from to help you on your own journey, and connections that they can draw from as well. So I think like for me, the faculty at Northwestern has just been like such a huge help in helping me define exactly what I am thinking about doing. Yeah.
So moving along a little bit, we're getting some questions regarding the housing process for sure. And so how exactly does housing work? So I would like to start out with the fact that our first and second years do live on campus. But beyond that, how does the process work? And going along those lines, we did get a question about kind of cooking for yourself. So what does the meal plan look like? Do you go out to eat a lot? Do you cook? Those kinds of things. Chloe, did you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, so how, in terms of like living situation, how it works is you get an email a little bit, maybe in March, I don't actually remember when, and you essentially have to list all, I think 18 up like buildings that you want to live on campus, and you just have to rank them. And then within those buildings, they're like, some are specialized and some aren't. So some are called like residential colleges, and some of them have themes and some of them don't. So some of them are like AIRS, which is like the engineering one, or one is like international relations. And if you want to kind of live in a place where that is the theme of the overall house, that's something you can definitely do. If you're also not in that major, you could join. And then there are some houses like Willard that are unthemed, I think. Please fact check me on that. But essentially, when you're applying for housing, you're guaranteed housing because it's, you know, mandatory, and you just list them. And then for certain residential colleges, you write essays into them. So it's just kind of like, what would you contribute? And it's like a very easygoing essay. I didn't personally do residential colleges. It's not something I don't really know about. And then in terms of your second year, you still have to live on campus, but if you choose to rush a sorority or fraternity, that you can also live with them. That's kind of the gist. And then in terms of dining, all first and second years also have to do like the open access meal plan. And that just means like a lot of access to food. You get these things called like unlimited meal swipes, which just means any time of the day when the dining hall is open, you can just go in. I've definitely gotten for like a sugar cookie or like hot water. Yeah, it's quite nice. And so there's like several dining halls on campus that you can go to, and they're spread out between like the North Point and like the South. And in addition to that, we have something called like Norris Center, where there are kind of more non-dining hall style. So there's like Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, Mod Pizza, which is I think a thing only in America, but I could be wrong. It's like Papa John's or Pizza Hut or something like that, but you can make it your own. And you have like $125 every single quarter that you can use at those stores. So it's kind of like monopoly money, but it's actual money. You can buy actual stuff. And then you also get like meal exchanges every week. You get 2. So you can exchange it for a pizza at Mod Pizza, or like a taco, quesadilla, or something like that. So all that to say that because you're chosen this plan, you don't really need to worry about not having really anything to eat, because you have that accessibility. But also, if you do miss that home cooked food and you want to dabble in cooking, I'm not sure about all dining halls, but I'm sure a majority of dining halls have at least like a stove or like a microwave. And if your kitchen, let's say, is occupied, you could always go to like another dorms because they're not that far away from each other. So if you want to cook, you can definitely do that. Just make sure to clean up after yourself, because that's gross if you don't.
One thing I'd like to say is also that Evanston and Chicago have an absolutely amazing food scene. So a lot of my friends and I go out on the weekends and like go explore a lot of the neighborhoods in Chicago to like eat some food. There's like an insane amount of like food diversity. My favorite is like Peruvian food in Rogers Park. You can go for Mexican food on the southwest side. There's like a lot of Pakistani food also in Rogers Park. So, and all these places are pretty near to campus. So, and also Evanston itself has a pretty good food scene with a lot of like restaurants that people actually come to from other places in the area to eat at. So, yeah.
Thanks, everyone. So we just have a handful of questions left. So we did get a question about visitors to campus. So, are there actors, comedians, businessmen, people that come to campus for talks and shows? I know that I feel like Jonathan Van Ness just came to campus, like virtually, I want to say. I heard about that. But does anybody mind sharing some talks or shows that you've gone to? If any.
Sure, yeah. So the biggest thing, you might have heard of this, is Dillo Day, and it happens sometime at the end of May or beginning of June, which is this huge, it's like, I think the biggest college music festival in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. And it's amazing. We get a lot of amazing artists that come to campus and just sing for the Northwestern community. We got people like A$AP Ferg, and a lot of other famous artists, and this is all on one day, and it happens on the Lakeville by the lake in the sun. So it's that's a lot of fun, and we get a lot of interesting people that come along. And then there's of course a lot of speakers. I'm part of the International Student Association. We once invited one of the producers for an Oscar-winning movie called Roma on Netflix, and that's one of the smaller events. There are a lot of amazing speakers that come to the Kellogg School of Management, one of the best management schools in the United States. And it's very, everything's very enriching. We also have more concerts and events, like Jaden Smith once came for a concert that was organized by a group called A&O on campus, and that was pretty cool too. So if anyone wants to take this.
Yeah, I'll also add that we have this thing at Northwestern called One Book One. So every year they choose a book. It's like a massive book club for the whole university, basically. And my freshman year, we read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and then Margaret Atwood, the queen herself, came and spoke at Northwestern, and it was so cool. So yeah, we have a lot of really great speakers that come to campus. Within the School of Comm, there are a lot of like pretty famous alumni that have spoken with us before. And I know as a part of a lot of first year tracks, like I can only speak personally to the theater first year track, but like our first class that everybody has to take, we had somebody new come in from the industry to speak to us every single week, whether that be playwrights or producers or actors or directors. So yeah, I would say we get definitely a huge variety of speakers and performers and events on campus, which is really, really fun.
Awesome. Thank you guys. So another question was about activism on campus. Is activism a large part of the student culture at Northwestern? Anyone want to take the lead on this one? Sure, go for it.
I can talk a little bit about activism. There are a couple of activist groups on campus. So one of the groups is Fossil Free and New, which is basically advocating for the university to divest from fossil free things. And so like there's a lot of activism that goes on campus that students are sort of like demanding specific things either from the institution or from the government. And I think it's just, there's a really incredible spirit there. There are a lot of student groups are also like specifically have people dedicated to like manage activism for those specific organizations, even if the organization as a whole like isn't like an activist organization. So for example, I'm on a student theater group, and I'm the activism and special events chair. So we've been doing a lot of activism work in terms of like whether that's on social media or whether that's like, you know, organizing different events and things like that. So I would definitely say that there is a lot of activism on campus right now, and I think it's only going to increase from here on out. So if activism is something that any of you are interested in, I think there's absolutely a place for it at Northwestern.
Thanks, Karina. So kind of the last question that we have here before we move into our final question is how easy is it to find a friend group when you get to campus? And, you know, what is the atmosphere among students?
Yeah. I've had an incredibly positive experience with making friends at Northwestern. I think Northwestern specifically is very friendly, and you also experience what you call Midwestern hospitality. So I made a lot of my friends actually during the International Student Orientation with ISO, which happens before Wildcat Welcome, which is the normal freshman orientation. And I met basically my entire friend group there. I've also met quite a few people actually on this call in that orientation itself. And people are just incredibly welcoming. They're very friendly, and it's very easy to actually communicate with them because you can relate to a lot of people. And Northwestern like makes puts a lot of effort into organizing activities and stuff that allow us to socialize and to become better friends with each other. So that's my experience. So if anyone wants to chime in.
I just want to plug that Northwestern size, I think, is so beautiful. So like each class is about 2,000. So you have about 8,000 in the entire undergraduate. And it's a lot bigger than my high school, but it's kind of that perfect size where it's like small enough where if you like want to be friends with somebody, like you want to see them every day, it's very, very possible. But then also like you could also go the whole entire, if you want to avoid someone, which I don't think you will because it's a beautiful community, like it's very possible. And that's what I think is so good about it, because it's not as big as a state school, but it also has a little bit of that like diversity in thought, diversity in all these other things. So I don't know how long it'll take. It takes a different time for every single person, but you'll definitely find your people there.
Thank you. So we're going to add one more quick question. I think this is a really important one, truly. How have you navigated the weather in Chicago? Martin.
So there is a lot of stories that might initially scare you off, and that's also what I've been told. I'm sure you've all heard like, oh no, it's going to be so cold and you're going to freeze to death in the winter, which, you know, a grain of truth in that. It is really cold at points. And we did have a polar vortex 2 years ago that like the entirety of Chicago for 2 or 3 days. I don't remember exactly. But I think it's very perfectly manageable with like the right amount of clothing and just like planning ahead for the day a little bit. So if that means that you have to take like 1 or 2 more extra layers, then so be it. But I think it's pretty manageable. On the other side, the summer here, which I'm currently going through, is absolutely beautiful. Like especially in the beginning, in the spring quarter, when the sun comes out and the entire lake full is just like full of students. Everybody's like outside. Everybody's having the times of their lives when the weather is nice. So there's those 2 sides to Northwestern, and they're both pretty prominent. But it's really worth it. Also, if you need any like support with preparing yourself for the winter, we have several offices at Northwestern that either give out clothing or provide financial support to buy better winter gear so everybody can be warm in the winter.
Thank you so much, Martin. So our final question of the day, why Northwestern for you? Darren, do you mind starting us off?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I would say my answer was three main reasons. First of all, in terms of academics, Northwestern is top 10, amazing professors, amazing courses here, and it's just a great school in terms of academics. And after that, athletics, we're also a Big Ten school. The whole football scene, like on Saturdays during the fall, is also very big. And I think it's just great to see not only students, but also alumni coming back on campus during homecoming and just celebrating with everyone. I think it's something that you don't realize until you start having friends who graduate, seniors like you are friends with and start graduating, and then we come back for games. And that's a great way to stay in touch. And the third reason is Chicago. This city has so many opportunities. I come from a small island next to Madagascar, so for me, first time in such a big city. I came here, like Chicago was one of the biggest reasons why I came here, and I think it was I wanted to get access to various career opportunities, and I certainly was able to do that. I've done 2 internships here in Chicago through the Chicago Field Studies program, and I certainly use the city as much as I could in terms of professional development, but not only that, exploring the city, exploring various food scenes, and I think those were the big reasons why I chose Northwestern.
I had a few reasons too that I chose Northwestern. One thing that really restricted my choice to Northwestern was the fact that I really wanted to study industrial engineering. Not many schools teach that type of engineering, so it really brought down the number of schools that I was looking at. Then the second thing was that I really wanted to be close to a really big city, but not in the middle of a big city. And Northwestern came out as the perfect alternative for that, because Northwestern's outside in front of a lake on a very green and beautiful campus without the big bustle of the city, but a 30-minute train ride away, you can be close to one of the biggest cities and most diverse cities in the world, which is absolutely amazing. Like Darren said, there are a lot of work opportunities, there are a lot of exploration opportunities for things like food and culture, and that was a very big part of why I chose Northwestern. Northwestern's also very academically challenging, but it's not what you call cutthroat. So there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, even though students are competitive in a sense, which is an incredible atmosphere to be in, to really push yourself and be the best that you can be. And I after researching and understanding this before I came to Northwestern, I really can attest to that is a fact about Northwestern. One thing that I noticed about Northwestern after coming is how convenient it is to be close to O'Hare in Chicago. So I live in Amman, Jordan, which is 13 hours away, and it's just so convenient that I can get on a flight 30 minutes away from campus and fly 13 hours direct to a small country in the Middle East. So I think this matters a lot for international students too. So I'm pretty sure others have similar experiences.
I can go next. Besides all the reasons that Darren and Laith have already highlighted, I was really, really drawn to Northwestern for the flexibility and the emphasis that it puts on encouraging you to be interdisciplinary. Coming from the UK, there are obviously, a lot of leading universities at my fingertips, but none of them offer that opportunity to be both academic and also artistic at the same time, and deeply, deeply study both of my passions. So when I found Northwestern as a school that has BNN, has the theater major, has a dance major, and really is really well renowned for the arts as well as the academics, I knew that it was going to be at the top of my list. And then I was lucky enough to get the chance to visit. And when I saw the campus and saw how it was located near the lake, I felt like I had all of the benefits of being in the United States near an American city like Chicago, but something about the way that Northwestern is built and the structure of Evanston and the lake just made me sort of feel like I wasn't in suburban America. I was somewhere that felt really open and international as well. And I think the fact that we do have quite a large international student community was also a huge draw, because at the end of the day, that is a place where a lot of us find comfort and friendship, because we're all sort of in the same boats, but I never feel like we're a minority. So yeah.
Similar as Darren, I also had 3 reasons. One of them being Chicago, as Laith already mentioned, or just generally a big city in the vicinity of the university. My second one was sufficient financial aid and opportunities, because that was something important to me as a low-income student, for obvious reasons. And the last one was just like a decent amount of public transport. As a European citizen, I'm like very much in love with anything that moves on its own that's not a car. So having the Metro, like all possible bus line connections all around the city is like a huge plus for me to be able to move around and like get to places conveniently in the city.
And yeah, so I'll go last. So Laith mentioned something about how like industrial engineering is kind of like rare, and like Northwestern does that. And same with my major. I don't think anyone has heard of it. I didn't even hear about it before applying. Learning and organizational change. Can't really tell you exactly what it is yet, but that's what's so great about Northwestern. They have these wide range of majors where you wouldn't really find anywhere else. And in the sense that they really are like catering to different needs, and it's very interdisciplinary. And then like adding on to what Karina said about flexibility. It's flexibility in kind of like majors and the social aspect, but also in switching majors. I know a girl that's about to switch like schools again. So she started Medill, CESP, and I think she's going to Weinberg. And the ease that she was able to do that was really, really attractive to me, because I had no idea, and I don't really have any idea what I want to study. So being able to explore, and then actually having the access and opportunity to like change majors. So you're not really bound to what you picked as like an 18-year-old. That's what really drew me to Northwestern.
Thanks so much, everyone. So we've reached the end of today's session. I did want to add one note that I totally forgot about adding. There is going to be a recommendation piece of the application. I skipped over that. And so I just want to touch on that. Students are required to submit 1 letter of recommendation from their school counselor. I do understand that internationally, sometimes there are no school counselors, and we definitely understand that. So a school administrator will be just fine. And beyond that, we do ask for a letter of recommendation from a teacher. So just wanted to touch on that to make sure you have a complete picture of the application. But thanks again for spending part of your Friday with us. And thank you all so much for sharing your experiences. It was great to learn more about your Northwestern experiences too. That's all we have for today. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Thanks again.